here we are again with my nice clean office. Run with that, please. It'll get clean before I leave on my road trip. And of course, when you're watching this, I'm on my road trip. But we are now at Friday. And this week I shared with you the path. Shared some things out of my book. I shared with you this final exercise from the book. And today I wanted to share some of my answers and my thoughts. And that doesn't mean this is end all be all the right. I love having these discussions in live seminar because we learn so much from each other, from those that are willing to learn from each other. So let's talk about it. Bonjour. Mishko Paganan Kwe Nadishnagas Mangdodam. Hi, everybody. My name is Sandy Boucher. I'm Red Thunderbolt Woman of the Loon Clan, a proud member of Seine River First Nation in Treaty 3 territory in Northern Ontario. And as I mentioned, then we're going to finish off this week where I'm going to give you feedback on the 10 people that we met in this exercise, what path I think they're on, what stage I think they're on, and how do we help them move to the next stage. So let's jump into it. The first person was that angry person you don't know if they're Indigenous or not, who thinks that we should just quit talking about the past because we can't change it and move on. From my Indigenous lens, I am putting this person on the non-Indigenous path, and it's because of what they said. They said they think we should quit talking about the past because we can't change it and we should move on. If it was an Indigenous person, and of course there could be an angry Indigenous person who thinks we should quit talking about the past, but they would say because it's never going to change. The mainstream is never going to accept us. Right? So slightly different. So I'm putting them on the non-Indigenous path. They're in stage 1. They have not accepted the facts yet. They don't even want to talk about it anymore. So if they accepted the facts, they would understand why we have to talk about it. And expecting Indigenous people to just move on, or Canada just to move on, that means they don't even understand why that we have things to reconcile from. So they are hardcore stage 1, just beginning their journey. Next, an angry Indigenous activist who keeps calling white people snowflakes. Okay, so obviously Indigenous path. This person is stage 1. This person has not done their healing yet. This is that anger. Remember, there's 3 natural human reactions to oppression. There's violence, there's acquiescence, just giving up, and there's nonviolent resistance. This anger is violence in another form. So stage 1 Indigenous path. How you doing so far? Do you agree with me? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Third person, an intoxicated, homeless, Indigenous person. So again, Indigenous path, because they're identified as Indigenous. Homeless and intoxicated. This person needs healing. This person needs compassion and support. They're stage 1 for totally different reasons than the angry person, but healing needed nevertheless. They're stage 1. I will go back to talk about how we're moving these people to the next stage. So I should be writing this down, right? So I can remember angry person. So they were non-Indigenous and stage 1. Angry Indigenous activist was Indigenous stage 1. Intoxicated homeless Indigenous person, Indigenous path stage 1. A chief giving a speech at a national assembly. So obviously Indigenous path, I would give you or agree with you if you said either stage 3 or stage 4. So stage 3 is using their strong, empowered voice. So he's giving a speech, he, she, they, giving a speech at a national assembly. So that's total empowerment. Depending on what the speech is about, this could also be steps to reconciliation, which would make it stage 4. Okay, so either a 3 or 4 on the Indigenous path. Number 5, a white person who is heartbroken with newfound awareness of their privilege. The word privilege is the one that gave it away. So they are definitely non-Indigenous. So on the non-Indigenous path, they are stage 2, the higher learning. They've accepted the facts, but now they're identifying the benefits and unpacking that suitcase and coming to terms with their privilege. Guilt and shame are often part of coming to terms with your privilege. But I always like to remind people, no one asked for their level of privilege, nor can you give it back. Feeling bad about it doesn't help anyone. Use it to help the people that don't have the privilege, right? Hold open the door for the people who can't get in the door that you just walked through. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Not easy. The answer is easy. Actually doing it takes reconciliation. Number 6, a CEO who wants to develop an Indigenous engagement strategy. Okay, non-Indigenous, because for one CEO, I'm not saying Indigenous people can't be CEOs. I'm saying look at the numbers. I see CEOs that look more like this than I do Indigenous people any day of the week. So, and they want to develop an Indigenous engagement strategy, which implies Indigenous is different, othering, right? So chances are I'm not Indigenous, otherwise we'd already be engaging, right? So they are on the non-Indigenous path. They want to develop an Indigenous engagement strategy. Again, I'm going to give you leeway if you said either 3 or 4. I'm leaning more to 3 because, no, actually I'm going to backtrack on that. It is stage 3 because they're just developing the strategy. If they were implementing the strategy or following it, that would be stage 4. So right now they want to develop the Indigenous engagement strategy, which is the change in behavior, which is stage 3. See, that's why these discussions are so awesome, because you talk this stuff through, you gain wisdom. It's awesome. Next one, number 7, Indigenous community members who want to develop an alternative justice program for their community. So we know they're on the Indigenous path. Hint, they're taking action. They want to develop an alternative justice program. Excuse me, of course I yawned. I did yesterday, I'm going to do it today. An alternative justice program, just for your FYI. The justice program doesn't work for Indigenous people. You can see that by the high incarceration rates. It's not helping anything, but often, like an Indigenous person, and this is a generalization, does not apply to everyone, but often an Indigenous person standing in front of a judge doesn't believe they have a chance in heck. They're being judged and they're just going to be sentenced. And often that's the case. But if that person had to stand in front of a circle of elders and explain why they did what they did, respected elders, the attitude could be totally different. Now you're going to see remorse. Now you're going to see humility. Might even see vulnerability. That would be one form of an alternative justice program. So these people are on the Indigenous path, and because they are taking action, they're not just unpacking the suitcase or looking at internalized oppression. They want to change things. They are stage 3. Again, they're developing. It's not in practice, so not stage 4 yet. Number 8 was the Indigenous traditional dancer. Now, so obviously on the Indigenous path, a huge part of stage 3 is Indigenous pride. So I seriously need to eat something. I am so sorry. I am going to put them in stage 3 with a huge disclaimer. I know traditional dancers that if you talk to them for 5 seconds, you realize they're in stage 1. They haven't done their healing yet. They just learned how to dance a powwow. I am assuming that this is a healthy, confident, traditional dancer, proud of who they are. So I'm going to put them in stage 3 and give them the benefit of the doubt. Number 9, an Indigenous youth has attempted to unalive themselves. Indigenous path stage 1. They need healing. They need support. They need encouragement. They need understanding. They need space and time to heal. Stage 1. And the last one, a CEO who is pushing for their Indigenous partners to get it together. Non-Indigenous path step 1. This is a person who has not accepted the facts, has no idea why Indigenous people haven't gotten it together, doesn't realize the need for reconciliation, doesn't understand a lot. There is a lot of education that needs to happen there. So they're non-Indigenous stage 1. So let's go back and run through how we're going to help these people. This angry person who thinks we should quit talking about the past and just move on, that non-Indigenous stage 1, they're not going to hear you because they're angry. So, don't lose a lot of energy here talking to the wall, because that's about it. But I would suggest, responding with something like, no, we can't change the past, but we can heal from it. We can change the future, and leave it like that. Silence is acceptance, so you have to say something. Do not argue with this person. That's a waste of your energy. But just planting the seeds that there is something we can do about it. So, are they going to hear you? Maybe the 15th time you say it. Focus more on not staying silent and just accepting. Second one, an angry Indigenous activist who keeps calling white people snowflakes. Indigenous path stage 1. I would hardcore call this person out. I would point out to them that inflicting harm on other people doesn't help us heal. That 2 wrongs don't make a right. That doesn't help. And that I know a whole bunch of non-Indigenous people that aren't snowflakes. And that's offensive. Again, silence is acceptance. I would most definitely say something. I call out Indigenous people for being racist all the time. Racist is racist. I don't care who it is. Number 3, an intoxicated homeless Indigenous person. Stage 1, Indigenous path. Make sure they're safe. Call in the proper supports. I mean, here in the city, there's a wide variety of agencies that offer support. Give them space and time and dignity. Don't feel sorry for them. That makes it worse. But accept, don't judge. Accept that this is a natural human reaction to oppression. And we as an Indigenous didn't create the environment that we're struggling with. Canada did. So there's that. Number 4, a chief giving a speech at a national assembly. If you're Indigenous and you're there listening to it, applaud loudly. If you're non-Indigenous or Indigenous and you heard about it online, you saw in the news, whatever, share it. Share their voice. Make sure that their proud, strong voice, their voice reaches even more people. That's how you help them move into reconciliation, because that speech can educate other people. Okay, you don't need to say anything. We don't need people speaking for us. Just magnify our voice. Number 5, a white person who is heartbroken with newfound awareness of their privilege. Non-Indigenous path stage 2. Give them time to cry their tears. White fragility is a thing. But then I always remind people that if they're focused on their feelings, they're once again focused on the wrong people. That reconciliation requires that you're thinking of the people that don't have that privilege and that are oppressed. And once you get past your grieving, don't stay there long, because we need you to get to stage 3, the action stage. So supportive, understand it's a shock. but really encouraging them to get past that and get on to doing something. Number 6, a CEO who wants to develop an Indigenous engagement strategy, non-Indigenous stage 3, 100% encourage them to 100% make sure that they develop the Indigenous engagement strategy with Indigenous people. They have to get the right lens on the work. Number 7, Indigenous community members who want to develop an alternative justice program for their community. Indigenous Path Stage 3, fully support and endorse that work. Again, if you heard about it in the news, share the story, magnify the work they're doing. In this case, whether you're Indigenous or not, I would definitely add encouraging words. Wow, this is great. Great steps forward. Awesome. This is reconciliation work. Anything like that, so that people who follow you know that you support this work. That would kind of make you an ally. An Indigenous traditional dancer, Indigenous Path Stage 3, totally just applaud or smile or whatever is appropriate, depends what kind of gathering you're at. Just enjoy an empowered Indigenous person. Enjoy the view. Don't go over there and ask 5 million questions. They don't do it to become a resource manual. Just appreciate this is a person that has done some healing, and maybe even tell other people about them to encourage, especially Indigenous. Not by putting pressure on them, but just, share with your non-Indigenous people how awesome it was to see this. And if they go silent, they've got some work to do on the path. Number 9, an Indigenous youth who has attempted to unalive themselves. That is definitely Indigenous Path Stage 1. Get them the supports, get them the encouragement they need, get the professional help they need, give them time and space. Don't expect from them. This is holding space for their healing. And last but not least, a CEO who is pushing for their Indigenous partners to get it together. If that person, because their CEO is running a company, just know 110% that company is not engaged in reconciliation work. Because if that's what their leader thinks, then that has poisoned all of the work of that agency. It would reduce it just to being performative, because it's going to be tainted, the bad apple, by the bad apple that is the CEO. I would definitely push back on someone saying that and say that obviously they need to do some education, because they have no idea what you want us to get past. And by the way, don't imply it's in the past, because all of the oppression and harm and all of that stuff is still happening. There you have it. The final reconciliation exercise that is part of my full day, the Path seminar. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know. Did any light bulbs go off? Did you realize some things? Did you realize some things about the people you work with or interact with? Are there some things you are doing differently now? Actions that you're going to take. I hope you enjoyed that. I will be back in the office next week, but I am shooting a couple more videos ahead of time, because I don't want to shoot a video as soon as I walk in the door. I think that only makes sense. Until then, have a super duper double delicious weekend, and I'll see you next week. I love you. Take care. Bye-bye.